and welcome to Friends That Invest. You're joined today by your host Simran Kaur. I am wildly passionate about all things investing and personal finance, and today we're going to be breaking down the incredible Start With Yourself book by Emma Grede, which has absolutely taken the world by storm. I read the book. I have the tea. I'm going to share with you everything I learned, and I'm going to address some of the criticism that Emma Grede has gotten because it's just been all over my newsfeed, and that really speaks to, I think, my algorithm, which is just like female entrepreneurs and drama, and when both of those things get mixed up, that is like top of my algorithm chart. But without further ado, let's get straight into the book. Now, the first takeaway was basically at the very start of the book, it's kind of structured into 3 parts or 4 parts. The first part is vision. Then she goes into like your emotions, old thoughts and new thoughts, and then actions. The first takeaway that I had was around the visions chapter, which was like the very first chapter. And Emma starts off with a bang. Now, the visions chapter was, without it being like too woo-woo, it's about how do you think of your life in the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 30 years. And what I really liked about it is she said that she always had an idea of like, what does Emma look like when she's 30? What does Emma look like when she's 40? And also, what would Emma look like when she's 50? And she gets very specific about the, I guess, like exact woman she wants to be. So like, what does this woman wear? What does she do? What does she fill her time with? What is she known for? How does she spend her day? And then she works backwards and actually sets yearly and monthly goals based off that. So for example, it was like really interesting to relate it into my own experience where I was like, okay, well, what is Sim going to be like at 40? And I wrote it down. I was like, when I'm 40, I want to be fit. I want to be someone that travels a lot. I want a few dogs. I want to be working on things I am passionate about. I want to have a beautiful home, and I want to have a thriving marriage. And so to work backwards, I kind of then had to ask myself, well, to be a fit 40-year-old, I probably need to start working out like in my late 20s and 30s. And so maybe like that is actually something I need to incorporate more into my routine, or to like, you know, be doing things I'm really passionate about. I need to be cultivating that now and like actually trying new things and not being so scared to like do things perfectly. And I'm really bad at like launching new businesses or launching new products. I get quite scared. And so you essentially work backwards and go, well, is the other things that I'm doing day to day, like right now, conducive to the person I want to be when I'm in my 40s or the person I want to be in my 50s? And it was such a fun experience because then I was also like, well, who do I want to be when I'm 50? And I've never thought about that before. And so I was like, well, you know, I want to be active. I want to still be like in the startup community. I want to be kind of like a mentor. And so again, working backwards. And I know I'm just a little bit, I don't want to say OCD. That's not the right word. I'm a little bit like intense, which I like. I like that about myself. But I went and made like a Pinterest board of like life in my 40s, life in my 50s, and actually visualize like what kind of home would I want? What kind of car do I drive? What kind of outfits do I wear? And it's just a bit exciting because you actually get to feel like there's something to look forward to. And I think society just does a really good number on us where like the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, those decades don't really get seen as exciting or something to look forward to. But I really enjoyed that. And so you make your vision very clear, like your life vision, what you want your life to be like, and then you work backwards. And I think it also speaks to this idea that nothing is accidental when it comes to Emma Grede's life. Like she has chosen exactly the kind of woman she wants to be. She has known that she wants to work and have this big, you know, ambitious life. She's known that she wants to live in this big, beautiful home in Bel Air. She knows she wants to be working within fashion and also be quite fashionable. And so all these things are like choices that, whether subconsciously or consciously, have led her to where she is. And none of these things happen by accident. You don't wake up and life doesn't like hand you a beautiful, I don't know, closet or an incredible job or a great marriage. Those things kind of are things you work on. And so I really, really enjoyed that. The second takeaway that really inspired me was around managing emotions. And it's always tricky to write about emotional regulation for a female audience by a female author, because we have spent so long trying to undo the negative perception that female leaders are too emotional and female leaders can't think straight, and if it's that time of the month we make a bad decision and the company's financials go astray. And we've worked really hard to move away from that. As we have said, growing up we'd say things like, well, who starts wars? Men do. Isn't that pretty emotional? But what Emma did in her book is she kind of ran through all the different emotions that she's had to not overcome, but manage better. And if you read between the lines, she kind of speaks about how she had to work a lot on her anger with her childhood. And it seems like she has a lot of resentment towards her mum. Her mum was a single mother that was working a lot, and from her perspective, maybe wasn't really there for Emma, and Emma was the parentified child, where being the oldest, she was in charge of taking care of her sisters, and she was kind of the person that the parenting default landed on because her mum was working. And I am a little bit nosy, so I did go on Instagram and have a look at her account. And she doesn't post a lot with her mum. She's had all these other people on her book tour, but her mum wasn't one of them. Or when she posts about the holidays and stuff, it's probably me making assumptions, but it doesn't seem that she is very close to her mother. And the reason why I bring this up is she speaks about how she's had to work through some of the anger that she's had and the resentment that she's had towards her childhood. And it is very humanizing, because you kind of think, we all have things in our life that we wish were different, and you kind of go, wouldn't it have been nice if I wasn't dealt with these particular cards? Wouldn't it be nice if these things were a little bit easier for me? I could get ahead faster. And one of the things I appreciate by this author in her book is that she acknowledges that she didn't have a very good upbringing, and yet it wasn't her reason to not try harder. It wasn't her reason to not do well. She kind of harnessed the frustration or her anger and said, okay, well, I'm going to build a better life for myself. And she also then was able to heal and acknowledge that that's probably not very healthy to use your anger as your motivation. And so she went to therapy to try and address the issues that she's had. But the second part that really got to me under this takeaway of managing emotions is that Emma Grede spoke openly and very candidly about sadness. And I'm going to read a little passage from the book that I highlighted because it just stuck with me so much. She said, there's a fair amount of mental illness in my family, including a tendency for prolonged and debilitating depression. This has always served as a warning sign for me. I know I would need to tend to my emotional health so that I never found myself taking that at the knees. And instead of denying my sadness and pain, I would pay attention. And then she goes on to say, the expectation that you should wake up every day and feel like everything is fantastic and that you're killing it, that you're the best wife, the best mother, and the best at work is not realistic. And you're setting yourself up to fail. This is why I feel it's so important as a highly visible mother and woman in business to be honest that I have difficult days and not everything is easy. I use the rule of thirds as a barometer for how I'm doing. If things are too good, then I'm probably not pushing myself forward, or if I'm not seeing clearly or missing something. And if things are too difficult, then the balance is out of whack. I need to dial it back. Throughout it all, I use my emotions as a way to tune into where I am in space and time. And I let myself experience them so I don't project them onto other people. And I allow myself to take the room I need and have my process. And she essentially goes on to speak about this rule of thirds where, 1/3 of her life she is happy. 1/3 of her life she's all right. And 1/3 of her life is sadness. And that it's okay to have these different emotions. And as someone that I guess I just feel my emotions very intensely, it wasn't refreshing to be Emma Grede gets sad. Emma Grede wakes up and isn't happy all the time. That's not a healthy way of looking at things. But what I found is I really felt comfortable and was able to relate to the fact that some days you do just wake up and it is just not a good day. And it's nothing in particular. Life is still great. Nothing in life needs to change. You don't need like a dramatic haircut, or you don't need to go and do something, out of the ordinary. Sometimes days just are a drab, and there's no perfect life, because she kind of embodies what I would imagine a perfect life to look like. But there's no perfect life of like waking up in a beautiful home in Bel Air with your children and, your happy relationship and your thriving businesses and your like beautiful clothes. Like, those aren't the ingredients to wake up and just be ecstatic every single day, even though social media and like society would probably make us think otherwise. So that was like a nice reality check for me. I think I really needed that, and I found that really helpful, and I hope you found it helpful as well. Now, the third takeaway was one of the old thoughts that Emma reframed in her book. So she has this concept of old thoughts versus new thoughts. So old thoughts are the way that we've always thought about something, the way we've always done it, maybe like a myth or a misconception we have. And she's trying to replace our old thoughts with new thoughts of how we can do things differently. And I really liked it because it was kind of like her saying, hey, if you want to be like me, if you want to live a similar life to me, maybe you've thought about the world in this way, and here's a chance for me to explain a new way to think about it. And these new ways have like kind of helped me create the success I've had. So one of the old thoughts that she had is that you need to make the right decision. And it really stuck with me, because so many times, like when you look at someone like Emma Grede, you go, oh my God, she's like always made the right choice. Like, she started Good American. She realized that there was a need for plus size denim and like jeans of all sizes, and how incredible, like so smart. And then she did that again with Skims. And like, this woman just makes the right decisions and makes the right choices every single time. And she kind of shared how that was absolutely not the case. And I really liked how she framed it. She said, you can't A/B test your life. And if you're someone that like works in tech or marketing, you probably know this concept of A/B testing, where like if I put up a YouTube thumbnail for this video, I can put thumbnail A and thumbnail B up and then see which thumbnails people respond to better. Like, half the people that see it first in the first hour will see the first thumbnail, the second group of people will see the second thumbnail, and then it will kind of show me like, hey, more people respond better to thumbnail B, so let's go ahead and use that. Same with like a email header or title, whichever one has the best like clicks, that gets moved forward. And she said, you can't A/B test life. You can't like live in two different places or have two different jobs and then try and see which one you prefer more. You actually just have to make a decision and make the decision right, rather than trying to be a perfectionist and not make the wrong decision. This has like definitely been one of my biggest hurdles. And I find that a lot of women also struggle with this, where we want to get it right, especially for the investy besties when it comes to investing. We want to make sure we invest in the right index fund. We want to make sure we invest in the right brokerage. We want to make sure if we're, changing jobs, that we choose the right company or the right career, or we start the right side hustle or find the right person. And all these things like just are so difficult because you never know. And you can never like look at the outcome of one possible life plan and go, should I do that? Or should I look at the other one? Because you can't live them both simultaneously. And so she made this like really distinct sort of new rule that said, make a decision and then make the decision right, as opposed to like trying to work out what the perfect decision is. So I'll give you an example of like in my own journey. I've started to get a little bit better at this with like big life decisions, but it's probably the small ones that I struggle with. I didn't leave New Zealand and move away, whereas a lot of my friends did. They moved to Canada, they moved to London, and they lived these like amazing overseas lives and experiences in their 20s. And now that my 20s is coming to an end, I never really got the chance to like live that life. And if I do move overseas in the future, it will be a very different experience, because I'll be moving overseas, as someone in her 30s that has her own business. So I wouldn't be going into like a workplace and experiencing that. And also I have a husband now, and it's a little bit different than moving overseas when you are young and you have nothing holding you tethered to your country. You don't have aging parents, all those sort of things. And my life would have probably looked really different, and I would have had so much fun if I'd like lived in New York or lived in London. But on the flip side, the reason why I was able to make peace with that idea really easily is because I also said, well, I didn't live that life, but I got to live the life of staying in New Zealand. I got to really build out my business. I got to like focus on just building that up and building up my money and buying property and setting my roots here. I got to meet like the love of my life that lives 15 minutes away from me. Like when we first met, I was like, okay, this is nice. You're local. And I got to spend so much quality time with my family and my cousins and my friends that I grew up with here. And if I move overseas, that will be amazing. But I've also like had such a great experience. And I don't know if that makes sense or not, but rather than being like annoyed that I didn't move overseas when I was younger, I think I just had to be okay with the decision that I made and go, well, there's lots of pros and cons to both. And my friends that did move overseas will complain about how they don't have roots and how they wish they had bought a home when they were still in New Zealand and how they had all these great experiences, but it would have been nicer to have, spent more time with their family. And so you kind of just realize that the grass is greener where you water it, which is honestly one of my favorite quotes. Now, the fourth takeaway from the book was another old thought that Emma Grede wanted to fix up. And the old thought was that nice girls don't speak about money. And the new thought to replace that was take the fear out of talking about money by facing it and treat it almost like exposure therapy. I really enjoyed when Emma spoke about in her book that she was like going out to lunch with her rich female friends, and whenever she would speak about money, they would always kind of like roll their eyes and be like, okay, Emma, like that's pretty crass. Let's not talk about it. It's like not proper. And she would be like, wait, no, why? Like, I love talking about money. I think it's important and we should have these discussions. Like, who do you use for your lawyer? Who do you use to set up this? Who do you bank with? What's your like salary? But she was like, it just seems so silly not to have these conversations because the boys are having these conversations and it helps them because then they can compare and they can have like a threshold. She was like, we need to do that. And I truly relate to this because as someone that didn't grow up with a lot of money but has now found myself every now and again in like a circle where there was a lot of wealth, I can see how for a lot of people that have been born into wealth, they don't like talking about it because, they've grown up that way. But the friends that have made money like myself, like slowly and not coming from money, I guess what like new money would be is what we are. New money wants to talk about it because we see the benefit of it. Because if we didn't know what was possible or how to ask for a pay rise or how to invest or how to like negotiate, we would not have left the circumstances that we came from. So we see the benefit of it. And one of the things that Emma said that I really liked, she was like, when I would go to conferences, she would ask the other speakers, like, how much did you get paid? And one of the speakers said to her, like, no one has ever asked me that. And I do the exact same. Like when I go to a conference with other female speakers, I will ask them, I'll be like, how much did you guys get paid for this? And more than once, I have realized that some of those women were not paid at all. And then I would be like, well, I got paid like $5,000 or I got paid $10,000. And so the next time they have the opportunity to go and speak, they know what to ask for. They can actually like hold their own and have some data to make better financial decisions. At the end of the day, like that is literally all that talking about money gives you. It just gives you data points. Now, the fifth takeaway was another old thought versus new thought. Now, the old thought was that you should be satisfied with what you have, people have less than you, and it's greedy to want more. And she wanted to replace it with this new thought of you need to think about yourself first because no one else will do it for you. The whole premise of this section was about making sure that you're really putting yourself forward for pay rises, making sure that you go into negotiations being like proud of yourself and being strong and knowing what you bring to the table. She was like, firstly, you're probably without a doubt being underpaid. You're not going to upset anyone for asking for more. And the worst thing that they can say is they can be like, no, Sim, sorry, that's too much. And at least you can walk away with the idea that you asked for what you were worth. And even if it was a no, you walk away with your head high. And I really like that. She also spoke about this idea that you can't diminish your own value because other people will do it for you. And when you go into a negotiation, don't go in it with like your tail between your legs and almost already being apologetic for wanting more. That's not a good negotiation tactic. You should instead go in being proud of what you have to offer, show off the reasons why you are worth what you're about to ask for, and then meet them in the middle. And so an example of that would be like when I have my employees come to me for pay rises, I've almost like helped coach them in how to ask me for one, instead of being like, I mean, it would be nice if I got $10,000 more, but like no pressure, don't feel like you have to. You're already setting yourself off on the back foot. And instead you should turn up and be like, hey, I'm an asset to this business because I generate X amount of revenue through these 3 different things that I do. And in the last year, my actions have at least added $20,000 to the top line. And so by hiring me for another year and paying me $15,000, like you make an extra $5,000 off my work and me being there. And by kind of positioning yourself as like an asset and a reason why someone should have you, it just creates more of a like abundance styled negotiation between you and the other side, as opposed to like, I'm sorry for taking away. I'm sorry for like taking from the business, because you're an asset. There's a reason why someone wants to hire you. There's a reason why someone wants to work with you. There's a reason why someone wants to do a business deal with you. And you need to highlight the pros of them working with you. They will already think of the cons. We don't need to remind them. Just focus on the pros. Now, the final old thought versus new thought, and probably the most controversial one, is the old thought was you're responsible for your kids' lives and you need to protect them. And the new thought is that you're responsible for providing your kids the nutrients they need to thrive, and what they choose to grow into is the fruit of their own lives. And Emma Grede kind of spoke about how, she's a 3-hour parent, but what she means by that is she is there for the most important parts of her children's day-to-day. She's not necessarily super hands-on in other aspects like school PTA meetings or like bringing muffins to the classroom, whereas she'll be there for more significant moments. And understandably, like this has caused a lot of different reactions because motherhood, I imagine, is so personal. Like I'm not a mother. I don't know if I will be a mother, but reading this chapter almost made me relax a little bit, because without it, I just know that if I became a mum, I would be such a helicopter parent. All the algorithms that are like, are you doing this wrong? Are you going to ruin your baby's life? Are you going to put them in therapy? Do this, watch this. And I would consume it all. I would watch it all. I would pay for it all. Like the fear mongering would work on me. And so it was almost kind of nice in that aspect to hear another like ambitious woman say, hey, look, we kind of overcomplicate parenting. They just need a safe place. They can keep themselves, preoccupied. Just look after them. You don't have to supervise them 24/7. You don't have to like plan every hour of their day. Like let them be bored. Let them figure it out. It's okay if they watch a little bit of TV. Like screen time is not the enemy. And her perception that we've overcomplicated parenting, I respected it. In saying that, I did have to kind of think about Emma Grede's perspective is going to come from her own childhood and her own experiences. And as she said, she had a very, in her own words, like a hands-off mother who was there financially and provided like support in terms of like a home and food and shelter, but perhaps not the, quality time or the one-on-one parent-child relationship. And I had the opposite experience, just being like a child of Indian immigrant parents. My parents were helicopter parents. Every grade, every assignment, every like little change in my day, my parents were onto it. They would drop us off every day to school. They'd pick us up. They would ask questions. Any time that they could get involved, they were like involved 110%. Like I remember going to a Sikh like children's camp and I would just turn around and my dad would just be there, and I'd get like a jump scare. I'd be like, Jesus Christ, like, what are you doing here? And so I can't imagine not being a very hands-on parent, and I personally feel like I would want to be more focused on like pouring as much as I could into them, and maybe that's not the right way of doing things. However, it is really nice to know that like maybe there is an overcomplicated culture that we've created, and that maybe I won't feel mum guilt because I kind of have seen examples now and I can understand that the kids will be okay. But I mean, it's always so rich coming from someone that doesn't have kids, isn't it? Like someone that's like, I'd do this if I had a child, you know, and fast forward, I just am like, look, as long as they have like their t-shirt on the top and shorts on the bottom and their hair's like half brushed, that's good enough for me. So God knows what will actually happen. But in saying that, this book has been really interesting because it's forced me to kind of consider almost like perspectives that I hadn't before. And some of the things were very like, you know, common sense, like ask for more, stand up for yourself. But some of the things were also brand new, and this idea of like, it is okay to kind of be a little bit selfish. It is okay to not worry so much about the kids. It is okay to just be someone that goes, hey, Sim needs to be taken care of before anything else. And that's just not how we speak about ourselves as women, especially if you're a people pleaser, especially if you're like very sensitive and emotive like myself. So overall, I would say the book was fantastic. And if you enjoyed it, let me know what you think. And if you didn't like it, let me know what you think. But probably one of my favorite reads for 2026. And so with that, I will see you next week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. The book is called Start With Yourself by Emma Grede. You can get it from wherever you like to get books. And with that, I'll see you next week.